For more than a century and a half, this sprawling mill complex in Taunton, Mass. was home to Reed and Barton silversmiths. They made elegant silverware, flatware, Olympic medals, and more. But now, this is all incubator space, and we're looking for something more precious than silver today: Triumph sports cars. The heart of your business is Triumph and TR8s, and how did you catch that bug?
Well, that's kind of an interesting story. I went from driving, I was building muscle cars in high school, 55 Chevy, fender well headers and everything. Went in the Coast Guard, went down to Florida. My wife says, "Oh, I like those small little cars." And it was a TR7 4-cylinder car. I said, okay, so we bought it for her. I was driving a 64 Impala SS. With air conditioning, automatic, you know, really nice car.
Sure.
Well, after a month or so, she said she didn't like driving into traffic. Took my 64 SF from me, and I got the little Triumph. Now, slowest car I've ever driven in my life. But the positive was I'd never driven a car that actually handled and had brakes. Because everything I drove had no boosters. They were all drum brakes. You know, you remember the day,
yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you call them 2 feet, and they try to stop the car. But anyway, I was over picking up a part at Globe Motors in Clearwater, Florida, and the parts guy, because I was there a lot, he said, "Hey, we got a TR8 in." I said, "What's a TR8? He goes, "That's your car with a V8. I said, "What?" And so I ran out to the parking lot, and the guy come out, the sales guy, and he let me take it for a ride, and that was it. I was hooked.
Sure.
I was hooked. I said, I got handling, I got braking, and now I got my V8 back. And I did that. I worked at a dealership for a while, and realized I wanted to branch out on my own. So I said, because people at that time, by 2 young children, I was working 70 hours a week at the dealership. They wanted me to work on the car because there's nobody around to work on TR8s.
Right.
So I rented a garage and I started working on TR8s. So that's the quick story.
Well, the problem is they only made 2,500 of them. But it seems like most of them come through here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the number's closer than 2,900, and everybody will dispute. They'll probably even dispute what I say, but I don't research it. I'm not a historian in that sense of the car. But we've had cars here, quite a few cars, that the numbers aren't even with British Heritage. They're not even around.
Wow.
So we have TR8s that have all the paperwork that say TR8 VIN number on it, but the VIN number's on the car by 1 letter, a J instead of a V, says it's a TR7.
Oh.
But it's the guy bought it, the guy in particular I'm talking about bought it new. His dad bought it new in Miami.
As a TR8.
As a TR8. And received bulletins and recalls always to the car.
To a TR8.
Right. To the numbers that match on his paperwork.
Yep. Oh, okay.
Nobody I was the first one, because I always look at the VIN numbers. I guess I was the first one to look at it and say, hey, this is wrong.
Wow.
And the car happens to be right there.
Wow. So the lore is that the TR7s were built by people that didn't want to build cars, and the build quality was awful, and the cars were junk, and suddenly the TR8 comes out, and it's a revelation, and they move to a different factory, and the car is perfect. It's what everybody wants. Is there any truth to that?
Yes. The 75, 76, which actually is a different body, too. There's a lot of body changes from when they went on strike. When they went back to start building them in 77, they were actually a very good car. And they did some body structural things that made them a little also better. So I would break it up as 75, 76 is tough, but if they're still around and running, you got a good one. But I mean, they were junk. I admit they were junk. But 77 up with the 5-speed, different rear end, the different body, was a very good car. And then the 79 and 80, when they come out with the convertible, and 79 and a half, those convertibles were really a good car. They really were. They drove nice. They were comfortable. You know, they were really nice. But then, of course, then the TR8 come out, and the quality was probably in my mind, is probably the best they ever had once the 8s come out, from what I see.
So people taking TR7s and putting V8s in them. Someday, is this going to be like the people that took Sunbeam Alpines and put Ford V8s in them? They call them Allgars now because they're not really Tigers, but
I guess it's what's your final goal? What's your goal for doing it? Is your goal to have a Tiger and have it worth $80,000 and it sits in your garage in a hermetic bubble? No. Or why are people putting V8s in a TR7 body shop? One, because their motor's anemic. The V8 is so much nicer.
Right.
And they're a driver car. Okay. They're not worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
True.
They're worth $20,000 to $50,000, a really nice one.
Yeah.
And people drive them. You know, they drive all mine. I mean, Bad 8, which I told you I just ran 11-second quarter mile, it's got 110,000 miles on it. I've had 13 motors in it. You know?
Wow.
So at this point today, they're a driver car. People drive these cars. Wow. They're not sitting, accumulating value.
No, true.
You know, so if you're doing a V8 into a TR7, so you know, right now the prices may not be that different.
No.
If the car's done correctly. You know, I got 2 of them myself. I built for myself as travel cars. I got a coupe and a convertible that I travel with.
Great.
Both the TR7 prior to it's TR7 cars. So that's a tough question, and people may disagree, but that's my opinion. People are still driving these. They're not with millions of dollars yet. You know. So that's the difference. They're not doing it to increase the value of the car. They're doing it to increase the better drivability of the car.
All right. So I've got a TR8 convertible, much like the one here. Stock engine, stock Stromberg carburetors on that goofy manifold, all that stuff. And I go, all right, Woody, I grew up like you did. I grew up with V8 American cars that had a lot of power and a lot of torque, but I want cars that are going to handle and be fun to drive. What should I do to make it better?
Well, the base thing I tell people, it used to be, and it's changed a little bit now, because we're getting transition where parents, you know, parents, grandfathers, uncles are passing away, and people, the car sits a little bit, then they want to rebuild the whole car. But back 20 years ago, it was called what we called in the day, in the 80s and mid-90s, as a weekender.
Right.
You want 50, 60 more horsepower? Buy a set of headers, a 4-barrel, and a cam, timing chain and gaskets, throw it in the car, and you get 190 horses instead of 133. Okay. Do that.
Yep.
You know, that's what they do that and see how you feel, how you like the car. And then someday, you're gonna, if you're for like me and like you, this is really good, but I think I want more.
The answer is always more.
More.
Right?
Yeah. Your garage isn't too small, you just need a bigger one.
Okay. So the engines you're building are in what kind of horsepower range for a 3.5?
Well, for a 3.5, the general rebuild, our one we list on the site, is a 250 to 271 horse. Yeah. And that's still same drivability as I mentioned before. It's just got, it's like back in the day if you had bought a stock Nova with a 307 or one with a 396 big block. Okay. So what you do is you take that motor and you make it breathe. They're an emissions motor from 1980. So you bring the compression up a little bit. You rebalance the motor, you reline bore the motor, you resize all the rods. You put 975, minimum we do 975 piston, sometimes 935. We profile the cam differently. We port the heads. We put bigger high flow valves. We put heavy duty valve springs. We cut the valve guides down and we put valve seals on it because they didn't come with them. We put a lightened flywheel, set of headers and a 4-barrel and a new distributor. Now you're at 271 horsepower with same smooth idle, same drivability, but a lot more power if you want to use it. So that's the motor we build. And we can build from that. We do vintage race motors also. Okay. So in a 3.5, that is our most common motor. Yeah. Most all these cars, that's what they're doing. We're doing, so on the green car here, we're doing some computer upgrades. Oh. And disc brakes in the back. And we do, that's our new disc brake conversion kit, correct. Jeez. We just finished that up about 6 months ago. Yeah. Took a long time, but to get it to meet our standards. All right, what's your favorite car in the shop? Probably my son's. Probably this one here. This one? Which we can show you if you want. It's up to you guys. This is a special car. It was originally the body and rear end and all the reinforcements on this car were done by Joe Morosky, who used to work with me. Oh. But one of the things you'll see, one finger. Oh. There's been lightning done to this car. So this just took about 18 to 20 pounds out of that trunk lid. That trunk lid is incredibly heavy. Yeah. Nice. Yep. Little stub stacks there. That's stuff he's working on. But so this car has a 488 rear end, has all floor reinforcements, has chrome moly tubular links, has adjustable upper bars to set the pitch of the rear end, depending on what he's doing. Wow. He can raise and lower from the lower rear control arms. He can raise and lower the car
Yep. Note the three-piece wheels, cast centers, and spun rims. Super light.
It's got the forward with the rear disc. It's got special rims. They're an 8-inch rim on the back.
Wow.
It's got a roll bar inside. And you see this little piece here, the ingenuity of my son.
Oh.
So you take this, this is also fiberglass.
Nice.
And you put it on that rubber.
Oh.
Now this car he had in Texas, in Austin, for 7.5 years and drove it almost every day.
Wow.
This is a stock 3.5 liter with light improvements like rod bolts, ARP rod bolts and head bolts. It's a standalone fuel injection system. The distributorless coil pack here and with a pickup, and this is the turbo.
What a beast.
So this is basically, it's a, I believe it's 400 horse and 475 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheels with a stock motor with turbo injection and a different ignition system on it.
That's impressive.
It has our strut brace we designed tied into the firewall to stop the front end flex.
I like that.
It has a light and flywheel with a 10-inch center force clutch. Has a stock gearbox.
Yep.
Aluminum radiator. It's got aluminum intercooler in the front. But this is a special car. This is, and I'm a performance guy, so of course I would pick this. I mean, I love them all, but
of course,
if I want to go and drive, I want the one with the most power. That's what I want to go drive.
Neat.
So
I've got one more for you.
Yeah.
I know you have a big backlog of TR8s to do, but with the supply of those cars shrinking day by day, how did you see and transition your business into Land Rover, Range Rover, and the Wedge Shop becoming TWS?
Well, the Land Rover, luckily, there's so many, and it's so popular, almost a cult type thing. There's a lot of components available, a lot. So the motor, second nature for us. That's what we do the most of, is motors. The rest of the stuff, we've been learning, but Tyler's a really good tech, and we got new tech Chris, who's going to pick this up really quick. But it's going to be a filler. I mean, I keep thinking that the TR8 business is going to slow up, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. So as far as the Range Rovers, I mean, it's just the up and coming. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be an endless supply. We are currently only working on the Rover V8s with a Rover motor in it. The later model stuff we're really not touching at the moment. I would think my son's business plan is, if this gets quiet after 10 or 15 years, maybe transition, But the demand, I've seen demand grow for these cars and these motors every year since I've done it. And that's why at Tyler, I was getting so much myself. I couldn't do it as one person. I couldn't do it. So I think that's how we're going to handle it. We're just going to, if this stuff lets up, we'll bring in more. We'll bring in more. But like I said, I told you earlier, I would think we're booking now for next summer, hoping we're going to get caught up a little bit. Smaller jobs. But the cars that we have here and in storage probably is a 2-year backup. Most cars come in for X, Y, and Z, and then they do the whole alphabet once it's here. And so you book it for a month, and it's here for 4.
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, everybody does. I'd probably do it too. But Alan's car, the green one with the rear disc on it. That was going to be a simple job over the winter. We end up having to rebuild the motor.
Because the answer is always more.
Yeah, and it came out good. We're very, very happy with that. We did some light changes that we've wanted to do to see how it would react, and it worked really good.
No, this is very cool.
Yeah.
You found a wonderful niche, and I guess the best part of doing these cars is they're still very, very affordable. I mean, I would say undervalued compared to what else is out there. Before the economy got a little slow, they shot up kind of quick. All of a sudden, on Bring a Trailer, which is the standard for cars on the auctions right now. They shot right up. We saw 2 or 3. One was a customer of ours. For over $40,000. And then the general ones were going. 18 to 25 in that range.
You know, it's tapered off. I'd say about 20–25%. You know, since the economy went a little tight, people are not throwing their money out crazy like they were. No. But it will come around. It will come around.
It will.
You know.
Yep.
And I think what Bring a Trail is, if people recognize a good car and a good build, you know, they're going to sell for good money.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mentioned to you earlier that people drive the cars. They're a driver's car, and I mean, so if I woke up tomorrow, and I've said this for many years, and my cars are worth $1 million each, I'd sell them all and I'd get something else I could drive around. You know, it would kill me.
Great.
But
I know, but yeah.
You know, when it gets to that point, what do? You can't drive it around anymore.
No.
You know what I mean?
Nope. You can't. They become garage queens, and that's no
right,
fun.
Right. So when they're worth 15, 20,
drive them. Enjoy them.
Right, and keep make sure you have the correct insurance. You know, I won't say but there's classic car companies out there who take good care of you.
Right.
You know.
That's an awesome build. Love that strut brace. That's pretty awesome.
The first bigger motor, the first 4.9/5 liter that we did, we realized we had to do something to stop the front end flex.
Yeah.
And I had a guy that was doing custom fabrication for me, did all my control arms and stuff for the rear suspension, and you know, he actually designed that. I told him what my problem was, and he designed it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great solution.
Yeah.
All right. You have any questions for Woody?
You think over the years you found every marginal gain there is to be had, or are you always testing?
I don't think you ever do. You know what I mean? As you have newer things come out and talk to other people, and you don't know what the response is going to be until you try it. So you can always keep trying. So I'm going to get on a little bit here. First and second pull. Now imagine what a 5 liter is worth and 200 more horsepower.
Yeah.
And that's 308 gears. That's highway gears.
Wow.
Isn't that unbelievable? Yes. Isn't that unbelievable? I started to get pumped up already. So one of the features, the flat hood, because it's 79.5, and it also has a black dash. Okay. Because they were left over from the coupe, and they realized the black dash was hot. So, all the 80 TR7s and convertibles got the gray dash, and they got the extra bulge for the carburetors on the V8. So, basic conversion. There's nothing real fancy. Mallory ignition system. You know, I keep a module in the glove box. But the difference with this motor is, when I was building it, is one, I didn't want to clean it a lot, so I had everything powder coated, because you just blow it off with an air gun.
Right.
Okay, even the valve covers. So, I had used headers because I was running out of money. I painted them black, and they're fine.
Now, is that a 600? Holly?
This is actually, I did some testing. It's not for common knowledge, I'll tell you though. I put 5 carburetors on when I built the motor. Well, I tested them all.
Sure.
Performance, throttle feel, fuel economy, everything.
Okay.
I tested them all. This is a classic 600 dual feed double pump. 600.
Nice.
Was the best out of all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, 24 miles a gallon on the highway.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, rip snorting power when you get on it, because we're going to take this out and just do like, we won't skid. First, I can get a quick pull. I think you'll be surprised for 3.9 liter motor. It's pretty torquey. Awesome. But it's got 4 JE forged pistons. Yep. It's got Napier rings. It's got a roller hydraulic cam in it. It's got T&D roller rockers, light and flywheel, center force 10-inch clutch. Just as the Mallory distributor with a hi-fi box inside, a digital box. And on my part of testing, all the aluminum pulleys we make for the power steering and the lower one. And so that's been on there 8 to 10 years whenever we built this car. The only thing I've had to do to it since I did wires last year, and I had an alternator go at 6 years. Sent it back to, and that's one of the reasons, again, I use an American company. This is made by PowerMaster. Sent it back to them, you know, under their rebuild program. It's going to be $85. Okay, 100 amp, you know, GM style alternator. 2 weeks later, I get it back, and it says the slip inside the box says warranty.
Wow.
It says John.
You can't beat that.
Warranty. I called him. I said, John, what are you doing? Yeah. No, nobody does customer service anymore. Wow, Woody, that shouldn't have gone bad. I said, it's at least 6 years old and 50,000 miles. He goes, oh, it's 6.5 years old. He gave code him on the inside.
Yeah.
And I said, but, so how can you warranty? He said, that part shouldn't have failed.
There you
He
go.
said it shouldn't have failed.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's another reason I use it, but that's the only other thing I've had to replace on it.
That's great.
This has the tall fifth gear, the 079, and it has a 308 rear end. So like 2,800 miles an hour. I think 2,800 RPMs at 82 miles an hour. And I have it's called like a hydro lock or something. It's just some lock pieces you put in the spider gears.
Yeah.
It's like $300, and I have to test it out. So it's got that in it. So sometimes it's posy, sometimes it's not.
Right.
But it's $300.
Yeah.
It's not $1,400.
No.
It's got my big brake kit. Then, you know, on all of them.
Cool.
This is another TR7 V8 conversion. This is known as Topaz. Again, this is
Sure.
TR7 V8.
Yeah.
Old spoiler, I got like 30 years ago. It was on one of the trunks I bought. This was what they call the Victory Edition. This is original paint. This is original paint, striping, and roof. They put a vinyl roof on it. In '75, the SCCA national champ.
Right.
So '76, they put out a Victory Edition. It was a vinyl roof, special badge inside,
Right.
and the stripe kit, and they had the white spoker wheels.
Ooh.
So
Those were fashionable for about a year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they all started breaking. So I bought this car a few towns over. It was in a barn nicer than most houses around here. That was a retired doctor. And he had saved this from the scrapyard 26 years prior, and it was in this beautiful, luxurious barn with no motor and tranny in it. I paid $625 for the car. Put a 4-cylinder in it, couldn't stand it. I had all the parts, so in 1 week me and Tyler built this whole car.
Wow.
And he said, we went to a show right after, we went to our gathering, and he says, every used garage part we could find on the floor, we put in this car.
That's great.
And now it's everybody's favorite car. Everybody loves to drive this car. It just drives so nice.
Yep.
Again, it's got the 308, rear end. It's got this has the 4-wheel disc kit. This is part of testing. So it's got the 4-wheel disc kit with this has a posi quaif rear end. And this is a 4-liter, not a 3.9. Let me explain the differences, the cam and the block and all that. Yeah. It's a 4.6 block with top hat liner sleeves. The crank's been lightened. It's been offset ground to a 340 stroke. It's got the Wildcat head kit out of England. So it's got massive valves, independent rockers. It has a custom built solid roller cam core, done out of 8 and 920 steel. So it's a solid roller setup. It's got a Holley Track Warrior 650 dual feed double pump. It's got the Mallory box inside. It's got the 1-2-3 distributor at the motor.
So what are we looking at for power and torque?
Well, we're guesstimating, which we hate to do, but like I said, we made a couple passes at the dragway when I had 7 miles on it. The second run was 11.8 and 118. You go on the computer and figure that out, and it comes out around 460.
Wow.
I guesstimate building the motor was 450 to 500. It's 12.2 compression, forged pistons, Napier rings, ultralight rods. It's got 4-into-1 equal length tube headers instead of the tri-Y. Also light and flywheel, 10-inch center force clutch. It's got electric water pump. It's got the strut brace. It's got the 4-wheel disc. All the floor has been reinforced. It's all fully adjustable suspension, coil over in the front. Aluminum radiator, and it's got our GM, alternator kit.
Beautiful.
So it's an open plenum intake also, and that you have to use that intake with these heads, which are massive. The only downside of it was we had to raise the hood.
Oh, yeah. Just a bit.
With that motor, without it, I only had it was like about an 1/8-inch clearance between the carburetor and the hood.
Yeah.
So we had to unfortunately do that. But it's got
So you resisted the temptation to do a shaker hood.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I took the original 373s out and put 345s in. My cam guy said it in the video. He said the motor wasn't loading up enough. He wanted me to change the ratio, and the motor will make more power. So we have not run it since then. We have tuned it much better, and we have changed the rear end ratio, but I have not been back to the drags. I've just been driving it.
Great.
But the numbers are relevant at this point. It just feels so powerful, so scary. It's also, the brakes are all done. It has 12 1/4 disc all the way around. It has a 50/50 block. It has line lock. It has an inline proportioning valve to the back. It's got a bigger booster.
So Scott, here's all you need to know right here. So the V8 transitioned to Rover, where it was produced through 2004, which means there's a lot of engines around. They're here on the floor, and they're here on these vehicles. And this one, Woody, looks pretty highly modified.
This is an upgrade. The gentleman bought it out of South Africa. They're bringing a lot of the 110s in. It had a 150 horse, 3.5 liter. He wanted to upgrade, possibly turbo in the future. So this is a 4.6 liter that's producing right around probably 300 horsepower with the cam, the headwork, and the sniper ejection. We also did a modified air conditioning system for it. As you can see, the sniper. So this would be quite the improvement. We did keep the compression down because the customer's goal is to someday put a turbo on it.
Yeah. So when you take an engine in like this, just a standard Land Rover 4-liter with the same basic architecture of the 215 Buick V8 that it started out as, what do you do? What are you most concerned with?
Well, on these motors, the 4.0, the late model generation, it's called the web block. And they're all cross-bolted 4-bolt main, which is great. The webbing in the motor, if you saw it without the intake, there's actually webbing. So it's a super strong. It's got bigger main bearings, it's got bigger rod bearings. But the only weak point in this motor is the sleeves. The sleeves are super thin. Ooh. So if they get too warm at all, they drop. So they're very common to know that dropped liners. Most of all these motors are all available. If you look to your right over here behind, all those motors, and 90% of them have to be re-sleeved, that they call a top hat liner sleeve. So then we segregate it because what Rover did, they called this engine right here the 4-liter, a 4-liter, but they had the second generation motor was a 3.9. Same bore, same stroke. But you have to designate whether it's a 4.039 because the bearings are different, the rods are different, the pistons are different, the rings are different, the heads are different. But will the heads interchange? Yes. So you have a smaller combustion chamber, so a quick trick that a lot of people do, these were 28 cc chambered head. You put it on a second generation motor and you can gain almost a point. So you can take a stock 935, 35 or 39 and put the 10 bolt 28 cc chamber instead of 37 cc chamber. You get another point of compression.
Okay.
And they flow better, they have a better exhaust. So anyways, I could go on and on. Like, there's so many differences. And when people say Buick, it's a Buick in design.
Yes.
Okay? But there's nothing really in common, you know, from the second generation up. First generation, 67 to about 73, 74, still had rope seals. The aluminum was a little better, but not a lot better. Okay. So aluminum was a big problem with them because the aluminum was very soft and had main cap bolts to strip out and stuff like that. That's why they every time they went to a generation, they improved. Oh. But they always left one weakness. So in this, they improved. They cross-bolted it. The heads, I'm going to say 1.5 pounds maybe heavier than the other heads because of the density of the aluminum.
Okay.
So then we, as I showed you there, and this will strip down. We bought this as a core, so we'll strip it down. We always need inventory. We can never have enough, So then from there, we put them up here, and my son and myself will figure out when the customer calls what do they want. So it's sort of like a what do you call it? Building a meal. I want this, and I want gravy, and I want this. We do the same thing. So we have to pick up. We need this block. We need these heads. We need this cam. We need that. So we pull all the parts.
Okay.
That's why they're all stripped down so we can inspect them. Yeah. A basic inspection, and then segregate them by what they are. And then we'll pull all those parts, and then we'll go in place and start building the motor.